All right. We should be live now. One of our hosts forgot to hang up their call after they got done doing their show. So, sorry about that, folks. And you're listening to me live with Boiler Room Radio. I'll be with you for the next hour and 56 minutes because I lost 4 to dead air. Sorry about that. We are live now. The phones are open, 718-717-8296. And don't call for a little bit because we're going to do our market stuff. Let me jump over here and grab Lance. I had him earlier, but I had to hang the call up because it wouldn't connect. So anyway, I'm going to jump down here on the Skype thingy, and I'm going to add Lance Musser. Jules is telling me I'm good. Thank you, darling. Hardest working woman on the internet, never gets a day off. Not with me. I ran into a trouble, and I had to ask for Jules' help. Sorry, Jules. Go back to your nap. She never gets no sleep, dude. She doesn't ever get any sleep. Like maybe an hour a day. 2 hours at the most. She's constantly cutting shows and fixing shit for people and trying to do things that they can't do and they ask her to do and blah, blah, blah. It's ridiculous. But anywho, let's go on with the show since we're live now. I kind of missed hearing my intro music. You know, I've got a whole bunch of new ones that I had Ozzy do for me, and I still haven't changed them. We're still playing the old stuff. I've got like 5 or 6 different tunes that he wrote for me that are just phenomenal for the show open and close and stuff.
Yeah.
But I haven't sent them to Jules or nothing. Jules said she likes the intro that we got, you know. So, and I think everybody else does too. I don't know. Maybe we'll slip them in here and there and do a little.
I think the After the Last Cup one is my favorite.
Yeah, that's my favorite too. Okay, so After the Last Cup, that's kind of a segue into After the Last Dollar.
Yep.
Which is what Wall Street's trying to suck out of everybody. So let's jump into Smoke'em's Market Minute.
Markets manipulated again as usual, so there's no need to even mention what the indexes ended up being.
Mm-hmm.
The collapse of the dollar, though, will be the single largest event in human history. It will be the first event that touches every single person living in the world. All human activity is controlled by money. Our work.
This is exactly why we do the Smoke'em's Market Minute.
And it's like I said to you the other day. I said, you know, if you don't read the newspaper, which I'm sure most listeners don't, you don't watch TV, which most listeners don't, you're going to skim over any, financial stories just because it's, so you get it, 3 times a week for 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
No money in history has had as much impact as the dollar. It is the de facto world currency. All other currency collapses will pale in comparison to this one. This collapse will be worldwide, and it will take down not only the dollar, but all the other fiat currencies, as they are essentially no different, meaning but not backed by anything. This collapse will lead to the collapse of all paper assets, and the consequences will have inconceivable results universally. Flipping over to a really cool story, a man exploited the perks of business class travel to feast for 35 times in a year at Deutsche Lufthansa at Munich Airport Lounge without ever taking off.
Say what?
So listen to this. The man used the flexibility of a one-way fare to Zurich to repeatedly reschedule his travel plans after gaining access to free food and drink, Munich District Court said in a statement. Lufthansa canceled the ticket after more than a year and refunded the price, only for the man to purchase a replacement ticket.
So he got inside of the airport where they got free food and drink and just stayed there?
Business class. And so business class fares typically offer the flexibility to rebook when plans change, while offering perks such as access to premium lounges, conference facilities, and showers. The Munich facility at Lufthansa's second biggest hub offers Bavaria's Lowenbrau beer on tap, together with local delicacies, including meatloaf, sausage, and sweet mustards. So this guy ate 35 times in the business lounge. And then after he got done with his meal, he rescheduled his ticket for the next week.
That's too funny, dude.
I thought you'd kind of get a kick out of that one. It was
wow. That's using your noggin, man. That's using your noggin. Now, did he have to stay in the airport, or I mean, was he allowed to leave the airport and come back and go through all the?
Of course. Yeah, I mean, it's just like, hey,
couldn't get away with that in the U.S., man. TSA'd be up his butt.
Yeah, probably.
That's funny as hell.
Moving on.
Yeah.
The IRS fines unbanked pot shops for paying federal payroll tax in cash.
Are you serious, man?
Legal marijuana businesses without bank accounts are unfairly assessed a 10% penalty on federal employee withholding taxes. They are required to pay electronically, but are forced to pay in cash, according to a lawsuit challenging this practice.
Yeah, because they're not allowed to. The IRS is not allowed to accept money from drug dealers.
Oops. Let me turn that down. Sorry about that.
Playing pinball over there, man?
Yeah, all right. That's my ringer. That's because the IRS requires all businesses to pay quarterly taxes by bank wire, an impossibility for hundreds of medical and recreational marijuana shops that are unable to obtain banking services. And rather than waive the penalty for cash-only businesses paying the tax on time, the IRS advised the companies to avoid the system by using techniques that amount to money laundering. In a case that could have enormous tax ramifications for hundreds of dispensaries, they are challenging the IRS practice of collecting what amounts to millions of dollars in penalties the businesses are helpless to avoid. Because these places have no bank account, and as a result of federal laws that make banks leery of doing business with the marijuana industry. So they set up a system that is gaining them 10% extra on all these people without cash.
Yep.
Or without a bank account.
And they won't allow the banks to open a bank account for them because they're illegal.
With no bank account and no access to banking services, the taxpayer is simply incapable of making the payments electronically. They said that they had a bank account, had paid its withholding taxes electronically until mid-2012 when the bank closed the account, and he's been unable to locate a new bank that will take its business. So he hand delivers.
A guy needs
down.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
He hand delivers twice a month to the IRS in downtown Denver, which is the only one in the state that accepts cash, and he's assessed a 10% penalty every time he drops off his thing. He owes more than $20,000 in penalties from December of 2012 when his bank closed to now.
Somebody needs to open a bank, a chain of banks in Colorado that will only accept money from pot shops. You know, and then they can file electronically for you, and I mean, blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
Just a local bank that's not subject to federal law and regulation, whatever. You know, just a local. Don't go for FDIC. You know, you don't have to offer that, right? It wouldn't have to be. Couldn't be a bank. Then it would be a what do they call them? Credit union.
Well, I think they're still insured, if I'm not mistaken.
But you don't have to be.
I thought they still had signs at the window.
But you don't have to.
I don't know the rules on that. I don't know about that. I don't know the rules on that, but I don't know about that.
PayPal.
I'm not quite sure.
Pay it through PayPal. Does the IRS accept PayPal?
Bitcoin.
Yeah, they do accept Bitcoin.
In a light side, American are on the road to recovery as recovery gains traction. Mm. So obviously, if all you do is watch mainstream media and everything else, the stock market's up, so everything's doing great. Regardless of everything else, as long as the markets are up, then everybody's in a feel-good mood. And it is projected that this year there are going to be 34.8 million people traveling over this weekend, which is up a bunch. Yeah, it's up a bunch from last year.
Yeah, nobody can afford to buy airfare.
Well, hotels are, booked. 62% of them are booked, up from 60% this time last year. So, I mean, a lot of people are feeding into it. Their 401ks are looking really good. So if you're got the blanket over your head, you have the wool over your head, and all you do is mainstream news, there's a lot of people out there that feel that, and they're living it up right now. So it's encouraging to see. I've always said I hope we're wrong.
Well, we've been telling them for, half a year? Now's the time to go do the shit you wanted to do, man.
Yeah,
Take your money out of the bank and go do the shit you wanted to do, because it's not going to be there later.
Yeah. Make somebody happy, man. Make somebody smile, and see if that doesn't make you feel good.
Yeah. Do that. What else you got?
That's all I got. I got a bunch of other stuff that isn't financial related.
What the hell were you asking me if I had a bunch of stories because you didn't have nothing?
Because it's your damn show.
Oh, okay. Well, since it's my show, we'll jump over here and we'll do that.
But I got some controversial topics. I think that we'd be able to go back.
Right on. We're all about controversy here at UCY. Okay, like I told you earlier, Greggy Manarino had a long one. Let me jump down here and.
Halfway through though, he'll be he'll be done. He'll be talking to the homies.
Yeah, well, kind of he was. I listened to it a little earlier.
You didn't drop it.
It was a fairly good one. Sorry. Let me see. Here's the Vice News. We'll do Vice News today because we did Full Spectrum last time. Jump over. Whoops. Son of a gun. See, we were having all the problems and shit, and I forgot to shut off the room because I'm a dumbass. So let me jump over here and do this clicking, and then go back over here and do this clicking.
It's Wednesday, July 2nd, and here's some of the news beyond the headlines. Hundreds of thousands of people held one of the largest marches in Hong Kong's history on Tuesday to demand greater democracy.
That's a bunch of people.
High turnout was fueled in large part by a recent unofficial referendum that called for the public nomination of candidates. It drew more than a fifth of Hong Kong's voters, but China's central government dismissed it as illegal. A former British colony, Hong Kong was returned to China in 1997. And until now, its most powerful leadership positions are chosen by a mostly pro-Beijing committee. UN agencies are warning that they aren't able to raise enough money to feed refugees in Chad, where people have escaped violence in South Sudan and the Central African Republic. The heads of the World Food Program and the UN Refugee Agency say security and logistical issues are further complicating their efforts to support the continent's 800,000 refugees. That's raising concerns that malnutrition, anemia, and other problems will worsen. WFP says it's had to cut food rations by half in some places, and that it must come up with $186 million to maintain its food programs in Africa through the end of the year.
It's a day in the life of the U.S. military.
Yep.
Amnesty International is accusing Lebanon of imposing, quote, blatantly discriminatory restrictions on Palestinian refugees trying to enter from Syria. A report released on Tuesday includes a leaked document from the country's security directorate, ordering airlines not to bring in refugees from Syria who are of Palestinian descent and threatening to punish them for non-compliance. Because they're considered stateless, Palestinian refugees are denied basic rights in Lebanon and are offered limited access to health and educational services. The government says there's no blanket ban on Palestinians entering from Syria, but it's previously said it would prefer they stay where they're registered. Turning them back would violate an international law that bans the return of refugees if doing so threatens their lives or freedom. An increasing demand for resources like timber and palm oil has caused Indonesia's deforestation rate to surpass that of Brazil for the first time. A study conducted by the University of Maryland used satellite data to prove that forest loss is accelerating despite a 5-year-old moratorium on clearance. Deforestation between 2000 and 2012 was recorded at 23,000 square miles, an area almost as big as Ireland. The practice threatens the wildlife habitats of endangered animals, and it's blamed for nearly 20% of harmful greenhouse gases. Check out the Vice News YouTube channel for more original reporting and documentaries from around the world.
Well, I don't know about you, Dan, but all those stories sounded pretty real to me. You know they got bought out? Let me see that article. I didn't hear nothing about it. Not yet, anyway. So, since that one's over, we'll jump over here and grab Matt.
Actually, I did have something before.
All right.
Reno.
All right.
Because there was one more story I'd tagged and I'd forgot.
All right.
Keep in mind, this is from Reuters.
Oh.
From April 12th of 2012. And I had no idea. Across the United States, more than 2,700 companies are collecting state income taxes from hundreds of thousands of workers and are keeping the money with the state's approval, said an eye-opening report published on Thursday.
What?
The report from Good Jobs First, a nonprofit taxpayer watchdog organization funded by Ford, Cerna, and other major foundations, identifies 16 states that let companies divert some or all of the state income taxes deducted from workers' paychecks. None of the states require notifying the workers whose withholdings are treated as taxes they paid. General Electric, Goldman Sachs, Procter & Gamble, Chrysler, Ford, GM, AMC Theaters enjoy deals that keep state taxes deducted from their workers' paycheck. Foreign companies also enjoy such arrangements, including Electrolux, Nissan, Toyota, and a host of Canadian, Japanese, and European banks. Why do governments do this? Public records show that large companies often pay little or no state income taxes where they have a large operation, as this column has documented. Some companies get discounts on property, sales, and other taxes. So how to provide even more subsidies without writing a check? Simple. Let the corporations keep the state income taxes deducted from their workers' paychecks for up to 25 years. It was not always this way. Letting companies keep their workers' state taxes apparently began in Kentucky 2 decades ago as a way to retain jobs. Last July, when I wrote about 6 big companies that pocket Illinois state taxes, I knew there was more to this, but I had no idea how pervasive it was until I read an advance copy of the 39-page report. Isn't that amazing?
This is why you don't work for other people. But the government won't let you, right? I mean, they try to run independents out as quick as they can. They've been taxing and regulating the trucking industry for decades, trying to get all the independent truckers to give up their game. I don't think that's ever going to happen, but but in other places too. I mean, like some little pizza joint opens up and a Papa John's moves in across the street and runs them out of fucking business. I mean, it's just they do everything they can to keep the independents out. They want everybody dependent on somebody else. For your paycheck, for your taxes, for your health, for whatever.
Corporate socialism.
Yes, corporatism.
Mm-hmm.
Oligarchy. Right? Doesn't that mean the same thing, right? Oligarchy?
Mm-hmm. Deals cut with states over the past 2 decades diverted $5.5 billion from public purposes to private gain. And close to $700 million more was diverted last year alone. That's an amazing amount. I had no idea. Jesus, man. And it's legal and they don't have to tell any of their employees.
Would you work for somebody like that?
Well, I mean, I probably have. I mean, you wouldn't know.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. You're going to pay it no matter where you work.
Right. Yeah, period. That's true. I mean, they got you by the short hairs, right?
Yeah,
unless you just don't work. Which 98 million people decided, hey, Obama's in office, I'm not going to work.
I mean, if you work for yourself, you still got to file quarterly taxes, so.
What?
I mean, if you got a business and you're not all cash and carry and not worried about getting audited, I mean, you're an LLC, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, rule guy.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah. Okie dokie. Was that the story? Was that the whole thing?
Yeah.
We go back to Mandarino now?
Yeah, you can.
Okay. No taper, no new jobs, no Fed, bullshit.
Hi, everybody. It's me, Greg Mandarino.
Hi, Greg.
How are you today?
Oh, we're good.
It is Wednesday, July 2nd, 2014.
Hump day!
All right, people. Today, we're going to cover a couple of truths. And I'm going to break these down into 3 segments so we can best gauge.
We'll get through about a segment and a half, and then we'll be tired of your ass. So.
And it's very interesting because we heard from the Fed today. Janet Yellen spoke. We heard about private sector jobs. And a couple of other things too. So let's go over that.
Okay.
But before we even get started, let me say this: at the moment, I'm doing this video blog, the equity markets here in the United States are still open. They're about flat. Nothing dramatic is going on, which is interesting because the mainstream media is playing up this jobs report, which I'm going to talk about in just a little bit, as being really great. The market doesn't think it's that great. And there are reasons for
280-some thousand.
About that, too. Let me just say this.
But 36
the market action that we've seen recently, I spoke about all of this. I had foretold it would happen almost to the letter. As a matter of fact, on the 26th of last month, just a few days ago, I had said specifically in a video titled How Market Distortions and Capital Misallocations Were Going to Get Much Worse. There's a little head right here. Click on this little head. It'll take you to that video. If you fast forward that video to the 3-minute and 15-second mark, I went over how we would see, how I believed we would see a move out of bonds and into equities. That's exactly what has happened over the past few days here. It's very interesting. Anyway, give that a look if you haven't had a chance. Speaking of that, I did a video late yesterday, and I discussed how central banks actually work and the mechanism they have put in place here.
That would have been actually more.
It basically talks about debt and the human bubble. Again, click on this head. It'll take you right to it. I would give it a watch. I think it's worth looking at. All right, people. So let's do this. The 3 truths that I want to go over with you are this here. What I believe we have a situation where once again the media is complicit in a sell to the masses. Again, there is so much proof against what they're trying to sell us. It's over freaking whelming. And let's start with this here. The first sell is this. And again, watch the mainstream media. It's all over there today. Even the financial channels, they are talking about economic expansion here in the United States. And you got a lot of the talking heads here on the channels, and they're trying to blow sunshine everywhere. Why? Because they have something to sell you. We know this for a fact. And this is the truth against that first sell. Again, the sell is economic expansion. There is no economic expansion. And how do we know this? Where is the truth? It's right in our face, people. First quarter GDP, I went over this a couple of days ago, fell off of a cliff at a negative 2.9%. I want to put that into perspective for you.
Yep.
We have not seen a drop like that in a recovery period since World War II. Think about that. And during that time, there was none of the stimulus that was going on, none of the backdoor, no taper that is going on here. And we had real money. The money was real. We had a wealth-based economic model then. We have a debt-based economic model now. So I hope that puts a perspective on that. So the first sell that there's any kind of an economic expansion or recovery is garbage and nonsense. And if you hear anyone on the mainstream media or one of these, maybe they're just misinformed, I don't know, you think of a word, individuals coming out and trying to force feed you that, you know there's an agenda behind it. Okay, the second sell is that we're seeing improvement in the jobs market, the labor market. Okay, today we found out private sector payrolls, jobs added was 281,000. A lot of people are going crazy. Oh, this is great. The economy is expanding. Really? Okay. Why don't they talk about the other side of this equation? How there is a mass exodus from the workforce. This is why we have a labor force participation rate at now a 36-year low. So there you go here, people. That's
just 2 weeks ago, it was at a 30-year low.
It's
jumped 6 years in 2 weeks because all the people leaving the workforce.
And I've been going over this a lot lately, is a Fed taper.
Bullshit.
The proof that there is no Fed taper, again, is right in our faces.
Market,
and you can easily see this by looking at the bond yields. If the Fed were tapering, we would see bond yields rising dramatically, but they're not doing that. So, again, they can talk all they want, the Fed, about how they're tapering, and I've gone over how they're using all kinds of backdoor mechanisms to keep this propped up. There's one more thing that proves that there is no Fed taper, and that's, again, easily researchable. Look at the Federal Reserve's balance sheet, okay? The Federal Reserve's balance sheet has risen parallel with the S&P 500, and they will keep doing this again. So we have proof everywhere of no economic expansion, no recovery in the job market, no Fed taper. Meanwhile, the mainstream media and even the financial channels are trying to force this down your throat to convince you that you're stupid. It's pretty bizarre. What else happened today, people? We heard from Janet Yellen yet again today. And Janet Yellen said specifically that she sees little risk to the financial system. Doesn't that sound familiar to you? Again, I went over how Ben Bernanke,
they said that back
right at the top of the credit housing bubble, was actually the same kind of a question. He blew it off. No, everything's great. Economy's awesome. Well, we see how that turned out. And
okay, so we know where this was going. And we're going to fade to black on that. That's 7 minutes of him. I mean, he went over all 3 points, right? I let him get all 3 points in. So if you don't like it, anyhow. Moving on. Let's rabbit hole. Like I told you at the beginning of the broadcast, everybody, 718-717-8296. The phones are wide open. It's a Wednesday night. And we've got about 90 minutes to fill. So if you got something on your chest and you want to get it off, be sure to call in. Let us know what it is, and we'll try to help you out. Do a big group hug, shit like that. 718-717-8296 or UCY.TV. I'm on the network. If your friends list connects with that user ID, then all you got to do is knock, and I'll add you into the call. What else you got over there, Lance? You said you had a bunch of stories. I'm going to click over here onto my Twitter feed. And
you want to do that virus one, or you want to wait till later on that one?
We can wait till later. Go ahead and throw one of yours out.
I got a good one, actually. This is what more. The more I read this, I was like, you know what? This neighborhood, this division, whatever, is on to something.
Mm-hmm.
For sale. Vacant lots on Chicago blocks for $1 each.
Oh, they're following after Detroit.
No, hold on. This gets better. Chicago is practically giving away land, vacant lots for $1 each. The catch, to buy one, you must
taxes.
You must already own a home on the same block. Like many U.S. cities, Chicago has struggled with what to do with a growing number of empty lots in the wake of foreclosure crisis. Efforts to develop affordable housing or urban farms have had mixed results.
That'd be all right if it was right next door to your place, right?
Well, hold on.
All right.
So Chicago officials and community development advocates hope the vacant lot program can help spark a renewal in some of the city's most blighted areas. The city of Chicago owns close to 5,000 vacant lots in the greater Inglewood area alone, and it is supposed to clean up, mow, and maintain them. But residents such as Aisha Butler say the city doesn't always stay on top of the job.
No shit.
So, like right now, the kids over there are playing in the lot. They're just running. I would hope that it would be somewhere where they feel a little more safe, a little more secure, that's a little more beautiful than what we see currently. Butler said some of the lots get so overgrown that toddlers can get lost in them. They often become mini garbage dumps or sometimes taken over by drug dealers or gang members. I just want to make my block nicer. And she plans to, alongside with Sonia Harper, 32, an outreach manager for a nearby urban farm. Harper has lived on the block of Southwood Street in Inglewood on Chicago's South Side her entire life. Her house was once her grandmother's home. Her aunt used to live next door, where her cousins now live, and they're all on the same street. The neighborhood has changed over the years. Older neighbors have moved or passed away. Most of the decent jobs left the area. And as poverty and unemployment increased, many people lost their homes to foreclosure.
Thanks, Rom.
Left behind, well, they mentioned him here in a minute, Left behind were abandoned homes, many of which the city had now torn down. That's left vacant lots here and all across Inglewood, including several on Butler's Block a mile or so away. The women want to buy the vacant lots and repurpose them, and under the new program, they can.
Community gardens.
Yep. Under the large lot program, homeowners can buy lots on their blocks for $1 as long as they do not owe back taxes, parking tickets, or other debts to the city. Butler's idea is to put public art, such as murals, on her lot, and maybe concrete chess tables, a barbecue pit, and even an area for dogs. Harper has already started a small community garden and wants to expand it into adjacent lots, free food for the neighborhood. And both see their lots serving as even a greater purpose. We want to be a block club. It turns from we care about gardening and food and nature and open space, and yet this is all brand new. Oh, look at that vacant lot over there. Should we do something about that? Oh, Miss Thompson needs help cutting her grass. Let's go see if she needs help. So existing homeowners are sometimes some of the best assets that a neighborhood has. That's a lot of energy. I mean, these are people fully invested in their neighborhoods. City officials, including Mayor Rahm Emanuel, and corporate leaders joined neighborhood activists in Breaking Ground Tuesday for one potential new cornerstone in the community, a Whole Foods market. It's going to bring jobs, well-needed jobs, but officials say the initial response to the $1 lot program had been strong. It received more than 400 applications to purchase more than 500 vacant lots in Inglewood, where the effort began as a pilot program.
Wow.
I think that's great.
Yeah.
Because if you're in the neighborhood and you could buy 3 or 4 lots, and taxes are cheap on an empty lot, and there's probably some tax benefit to buying them also.
Like I said, turn it into a community garden, make playgrounds for the kids or whatever, build yourself a second house for a mother-in-law or whatever. I mean, that way you're right there in the neighborhood. And
and I wonder.
You probably wouldn't want to do that right next door, though. I'd make that on the next block.
Well, I wonder, how long before other big cities that do the same kind of things, if it works out well here, especially if it works out well here. There's plenty of cities that would like to unload that stuff just because it's costing them more to own it, and have to maintain it than it is to give it away for $1.
Right. Oh, hell yeah, man. How much do you think it costs to run everybody around and mow them?
Exactly.
Pick up all the shit and...
Yeah. Kick out the drug dealers, pick up the trash, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, I'm going to jump over here to my Twitter feed now. I actually tweeted out quite a few. We'll do the Humdinger one now. What the hell? This dropped today on RT. If anybody didn't see it, I'll drop it in the chat. The title is Humdinger, swine flu virus which killed 500,000, modified to be incurable. You jackasses. A controversial flu researcher has modified the flu virus responsible for the 2009 pandemic to allow it to evade the human immune system. His lab's previous works include recreating the Spanish flu and making a deadly bird flu strain highly transmittable. Yet to be published research of Professor Yoshiro Kawaoka, Kawaoka and his team is meant to give scientists better ways to fight the influenza outbreaks, but gives chills to some people in academia who are fearful that accidental release of the strain would result in global disaster. These people, I tell you what, man. What went wrong in your childhood, Mr. Kawaoka, that made you want to make killer viruses when you grew up, to be a scientist and make killer viruses? What did your mom not give you enough shit to play with? You jackass.
Isn't that some amazing stuff?
Yes, it is. At his level 3 biosafety lab in Wisconsin University, oh god damn, he's right in the middle of the country. Ain't that something? Wisconsin University's Institute for Influenza Virus Research in Madison, Kawaoka experimented with the H1N1 flu strain that was responsible for the pandemic in 2009. Dubbed swine flu pandemic by the media, the work resulted in mutated strain that is able to evade the human antibodies, effectively rendering human defenseless against the virus. This is just beyond belief. He took the 2009, this is a quote now, he took the 2009 pandemic flu virus and selected out strains that were not neutralized by the human antibodies. He repeated this several times until he got a real humdinger of a virus. A scientist familiar with Kawaoka's research told the British newspaper. He basically got a known pandemic strain that is now resistant to vaccination. Everything he did before was dangerous, but this is even madder. This is the virus. This is the virus, he added. H1N1 flu has caused serious outbreaks in 2 recorded pandemics, the first being the notorious Spanish flu of 1918. Kawaoka's newest work is partially derived from his experience in recreating the deadly strain. The first H1N1 pandemic left between 50 and 100 million people dead, according to estimates. The 2009 pandemic death toll is debated, with some estimates putting numbers as high as 560,000, most of them in Africa and Southeast Asia. The professor assured the newspaper that the mutant virus is well under control in his lab and that making the strain that can beat human immune systems will help epidemiologists be prepared for a contingency of a similar mutation occurring naturally.
Yeah, sure. Because it took them like 5 or 6 tries to keep redoing it over and over again. Sure, that's going to reoccur in nature.
Kind of like Ebola.
Yeah, it's going to reoccur in nature.
Mm-hmm. Now it will. Stupid fuckers. Through selection of immune escape viruses, the laboratory is in the laboratory under appropriate containment conditions. We were able to identify the key regions that would enable the 2009 H1N1 virus to escape immunity. Viruses and clinical isolates have been identified that have these same changes in the viral protein. This shows that escape viruses emerge in nature, and laboratory studies like ours have relevance to what occurs in nature. I doubt this. I seriously... when have you ever heard of a natural mutated pandemic virus that wasn't messed with in a lab somewhere by some dumbass scientist like this, Jack? Not in my lifetime. I can't remember one single one in my lifetime. Maybe the ones that occurred back in 19, but he took this thing and mutated it. The H1N1. H5N1. What is that? Is that something that he worked on too? I don't know, man. I don't know.
Take me off of this planet.
Yeah, no shit. I got a little bit.
This is why aliens won't visit us.
It is. It is. There's just a little bit more of this to go. I'm going to go ahead and read it all. Okay, let's see. Okay. The research was approved by Wisconsin Institutional's Biosafety Committee, although a minority of the 17-member board is critical of Kawaoka's line of study. So that means that just less than half don't want it. But there's one guy that said, no, switch the odds. Oh, boy. Let's see. One such vocal critic of the community, the committee is Thomas Jeffries, who argues that the accidental release of the virus from the safe lab is possible, citing the recent incidents in the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, which potentially exposed some 80 people to anthrax. I think we can sometimes fool ourselves into thinking we have more control over a situation in a lab than we do, he told Wisconsin State Journal last week. Accidents do happen.
Nah.
When the Independent approached Jeffries for comments on Kawaoka's research, he said that he was not made aware of the details of the study at the time the approval was given. What was present in the research protocols was very brief outline or abstract of what he was actually doing. There were elements that to it that bothered me, Professor Jeffries said. Rebecca Mortiz, who is responsible for overseeing Wisconsin's work at the Institute, said it is needed to create new vaccines. The work is designed to identify potentially circulating strains to guide the process of selecting strains used for the next vaccine. The committee found that... What? Yeah? Huh?
I said sounds like a bunch of bullshit.
Oh, yeah. That's true. And I'm going to skip over that. Let's see. We are confident our study will contribute to the field. There are risks in all research. However, there are ways to mitigate the risks. As for all the research on influenza viruses in my laboratory, this is Kawaoka speaking, this work is performed by experienced researchers under appropriate containment and with full review and prior approval by the Biosafety Committee. You're working at a college, jackass.
Fukushima probably had the same kind of certifications too. So
Okay, experienced researchers under appropriate. You're working at a college. You have college kids,
but it's a class level 3 or whatever bio lockdown containment center.
What the F?
So we're safe.
Okay, flu virus strains are notorious for changing rapidly. With new strains emerging and causing seasonal flu epidemics, scientists have tried to predict what kind of flu they would have to face each year and have a vaccine ready. Oh. When they succeed, an outbreak causes much less damage than it could have otherwise. Bullshit!
No, I feel much better now. So they're doing all this for us, for our protection.
We already know, everybody that knows, everybody that's done any research on vaccines for flu, they know that the vaccine that they give you, this year, okay, is based on last year's strain. So what, these guys are trying to jump the gun?
Hey man, they're trying to protect us.
And don't forget, people, some of those flu vaccines are live virus. Research of gain of function by viruses like the works of Kawaoka is focused on exploring how viruses can become deadlier and more transmittable or resilient to existing vaccines. Critics of such studies say that they are too dangerous, both due to the risk of accidental or even deliberate release. True. For instance, some people in the academia called Kawaoka to withhold parts of his research on H5N1 bird flu. Normally the virus is highly lethal, but does not transmit well. But a series of experiments with ferrets resulted in an easily transmittable strain. The experiments were simple enough for any person with expertise in microbiology to replicate, which critics say some group of would-be bioterrorists would eventually do. That's the end of the story.
I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night. Maybe I can replicate it.
You have to wonder why this story is being released now. Don't you?
And there's a lot of shows on FX and movies coming out. Strain is the name of it, and the advertisement shows a worm coming out of an eyeball.
Ooh, nice.
On People magazine, I'm
so glad I don't watch TV anymore.
I can't wait for my Tyrant one. That's a good one on FX.
Oh, yeah?
I'm enthralled with it. The pilot episode was last week. It's awesome.
Very nice. Yeah. Chuck O'Chelly added into the call. Good evening, Dad.
Oh, good evening. How you doing?
I'm good. How's Frankie?
He's quiet at the moment.
Nice. It ain't gonna be that way for long, man. So get your sleep while you can. I told you the last time I had you two on, you guys are old. You need to get rest.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hey, how's the job going too, by the way?
Well, I had to take a couple of days off, and I didn't really have that many days to start with, so, but it's something. It's something, so I'm grateful. Right. That's all I can say about that.
Right. He knew, he's fully aware of what's going on. He's not going to shit you on the job, right?
Well, yeah,
cool.
I told him, from the day one, I said, look, my son's about to come, so you got to understand I'm going to be there for that.
Right.
And, he seemed all right with it, so.
Outstanding.
I'm happy so far. And,
how's Kim?
Real sore.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, we didn't
thumbs
expect
up, girl, if she's listening. I don't know if she's listening or not. She's probably sleeping, but tell her I said thumbs up. Way to go.
Oh, yeah. We didn't expect it to go quite the way it did, and,
Hey, shit happens.
Exactly.
At least it went well. That's all I was concerned about.
You and me both, brother. That was it's kind of kind of a trippy night, actually, when I called you. Sorry to have interrupted what you were talking about, man, because, you know, Jesus, one of those things, every time I hear those kind of stories, I sit there and I think to myself, you know, what in the hell is wrong with somebody? Yeah, that's what they want to devote their. I mean, this guy
does this guy have children? You know, is he married? Does he have kids? Does he have grandkids? Does he have, you know what I mean, cousins, uncles, nephews, aunts? These kind of people, and Lance and I talk about this constantly, and I don't know if you believe this or not, but I believe that these kind of people are not human. I believe they are not human. I believe they are some other species that looks like humans, acts like humans, walks and talks and, you know, quacks like a duck, whatever. But they have no humanity. They have no soul. You know what I mean?
Well, see, yeah, for me, it's like there's definitely some kind of damage to your soul.
Like people that develop weapons that will kill 10 million people. You know,
well, see, that's the only... Well, that's the only practical use I can think of for screwing around with something like this is to create a weapon.
That's right.
You know,
that's what these jackasses are doing. And you know, when they come up with the strain that goes, hey, it's 100%, baby, they're going to sell it to DARPA or the DOD or whoever, and they're going to be like, you know, that's fucking. Go ahead.
Yeah, but what doesn't compute with guys like you and me is this. Like, why you wouldn't take that kind of energy, that kind of knowledge, that kind of ability, that kind of natural talent, which the guy obviously has, to be able to screw around with this kind of stuff and do something productive instead of destructive. Why
don't you develop a cure, you sick shithead?
Right.
Come on, man. Come on.
A cure for a disease that they created.
Well, now, look, problem, reaction, solution, right?
I may not have the most... Yeah, and I may not have the most advanced scientific mind here, but it sounds to me like, from what you were reading, what you're describing, there is, you know, there's an effort here to make something that there will be no cure for, that they can't really combat. You know, again, that seems to me to be the only purpose for it, is to create a weapon that nobody could deal with medically. You know, oof. You know what I mean?
Job security, too, because now they have to find the cure.
Well, that's great if you have a job, but if everybody else is dead, where are you going to spend your paycheck, Chief? I mean, God.
Jules says that they're human, just very broken.
You see, that's where I was coming down on, is there is some damage to that soul that is just...
Yeah, that's why I asked him if his mom didn't give him a lot of shit to play with when he was a kid. You know?
Yeah, that doesn't explain it, I mean.
No,
you know?
I know. Nothing explains it. You can't explain away something like, what do you do for a living, honey? I develop viruses that kill millions of people.
Right. I proudly developed something that's a super virus, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
My lawyer told me we should get a divorce.
Yeah, well, that's okay, honey. Breathe this in. We won't need a divorce.
Yeah, no shit. There you go. And, you know, like the very end of the article was saying, there could be an intentional release of this thing. You know, what if this cat gives some student an F?
Yeah, well, that's all it takes is, oh, there he goes.
What's up, Frankie?
There he is.
Frankie's radio debut on Boiler Room Radio.
There he goes.
All right.
Anyway. Sorry about that.
No, you're all right, man. Don't apologize. You got a brand new baby. I got to tell you, dude, he is one of the cutest kids I've ever seen. I've seen a lot of baby pictures. And, you know, you got to kind of tell everybody, hey, man, your kid's cute, whatever, because you don't want them to punch you in the mouth, right? But you really do. And I can say this because you're on the other side of the goddamn country, and you're not going to punch me in the mouth. You got one of the cutest kids I've ever seen in my life. He had that little smile on his face. He was looking right dead at the camera, and he's like, I got this, motherfucker. I got it.
That's a hell of an interesting look for a kid who was just opened his eyes like a half hour ago, right?
That. Well, Lance and I said that to each other, too. He knows something we don't. He knows something we don't. He's a soul returning to this planet for some reason, and he knows something we don't.
You know, that was the first thing that people dropped to me as soon as, because you were the first human being to see him outside of myself. Okay,
that's very cool.
But after I decided to share him on Facebook and all that, people came and were like, there is something interesting in that kid's eyes, and some people that, have more of a spiritual bent about, the recycled lives and all that kind of stuff. They were just like, look, this kid automatically, just from looking in his eyes, he's got an old soul, and I'm just, I'm completely thrilled. And like I said, it was kind of tough coming through it, though, because, I'll share this if you guys don't mind.
No, I don't mind. Go right ahead.
What happened was we were going there thinking, now the National Weather Service is trying to tell us about this hurricane coming through.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
What is it? Kind of put an ear to it, man, and give us an update on what's happening, because I didn't cover that yet.
Hurricane Arthur, sir.
Tropical storm.
Yeah, well,
I think it was upgraded to a hurricane. I think it's going to come on shore as a Class 1 somewhere around North Carolina.
Correct. Yeah, it's supposed to.
Yeah, that's what they're saying now. Is that it's. Let me see.
We're getting it tomorrow night and then all day Friday.
Nice.
Yeah, but we're looking at it late tonight, and yep, exactly. We're looking at it late tonight and into Friday. The warrant will be in place.
It's nothing.
Okay. Just a bust rain. You guys need some rain.
It's a one, dude. I've been here 20-something years. Been through. You need it had rained enough for Isabel type 79 mile an hour wind to do the destruction. You got nothing to worry about, man. For storm season, you got nothing to worry about. Don't worry.
Yeah, right.
Oh yeah, believe me.
It's cakewalk.
The cat falls will be around sometime in late August.
Yeah, one is it's a cakewalk, man. It's like a nor'easter, but it's warm.
One's a tropical storm, man. That just got a little puffy wind.
Yeah, you got nothing to worry about, man. I'm telling you. You need
I just wanted to give an update, man. Everything's cool. Go back to talking about Frankie.
Just trying to assure him you got nothing.
It's cool. I lived in New Jersey, too, don't forget. So
you've seen some nor'easters.
Yeah, I mean, Hurricane Sandy was the last mean one I saw.
That was a superstorm, one of a kind.
Yeah, it was, and that was pretty brutal.
That was a geoengineered nightmare.
It is. That is one of a kind.
Oh yeah, and I mean, you could see that thing coming. This is like a breeze, no big deal. I see that. Excuse me, but anyway, so we were going in there because we had been in the hospital a couple of times, as you know, Jimmy.
Yeah.
Checking on things and making sure everything was all right. Well, everything was fine on Friday night. We go in there again on Sunday night, though, because we were planning on trying to get him induced because he was past his date. And they go to try and get the baby monitor thing going and, listen to the heartbeat. I don't know, how many people have had kids out there, but, that whole noise that you get.
Little heart monitor. Yeah.
Right. So they put those on Kim, and they weren't getting anything. So they were kind of dumbfounded about that, and they tried searching a little bit. And next thing
gave them the big Frankie finger. He was like,
"Well,
fuck you, doctors. You don't know shit."
I wish that was the case, but it was like we got an urgent situation, and we need a surgical team now. So they went and got him. Turns out that the reason why his trace was so bad, and it's strange because between Friday and Sunday, there he is making a little noise. Kim's changing him. But
he was live on UCY.TV.
You got it. Turns out that somehow between Friday and Sunday, he had gotten that cord wrapped around his neck twice.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. So it was a really good thing that we went in when we did. But when they wheeled her out of there and everything, though, I stepped into the parking lot and gave you a call personally because I was needing to talk to somebody.
Right.
Because quite honestly, I was bracing myself for, somebody coming out of an operating room and telling me that he wasn't going to make it.
Nah.
But
he's here for a reason. You can see it on his face.
See, we can see that now, and I've felt that. I've told you that privately. That that he's definitely something special. And I've had other kids, and I realize everybody thinks their kids are special and all that kind of good stuff. But I sincerely believe that that this little boy is here for a very serious reason. So
I can't wait to see his eyes. I want to see his eyes wide open and see what color they are.
Well, right now they're that dark-looking blue, but blue doesn't always stay.
No, that's true. So, that's why I want to, in about 6 months when he's wide open, perky, and that's when I want to see his eyes.
Oh, absolutely. But that look on his face was pretty funny, I gotta say.
Yeah, it was cool, dude. It was absolutely the best shot of a kid I've seen in a long, long time. You got a good-looking son. Congratulations to you and Kim. Thumbs up.
Thank you so much, and I'm just really glad that all things went well here. And
yeah, me too.
You know, and I want to
personally
thank you because you were definitely the one guy in the world I thought of to call.
I appreciate that, man.
You know, so, and there was a reason for that. And all right, I won't take up any more airtime with that. But just know that I appreciate you.
Yeah, I appreciate you too, man. So what else you got? What else you want to comment on? You want to keep going on the bacteria shit, or you want to?
Man, what else are you supposed to say about broken human beings or broken whatever the hells they are that decide that they got to invest their energies and their talents into that?
I really wish Jules had time to add into the call and kind of explain what she means by they're broken humans. I know where she's going with it, but it'd be kind of cool hearing it from her mouth. But she's got shit to do.
Yeah, no, I understand. And look, I can't add in the way that Jules would, but I'll tell you something. There is a mentality to people, and it's a shared sort of broken mentality. You see it when you're dealing with. I told you at one point that I studied a little bit about serial killers and cult leaders and group manipulators, let's just say, and they do have sort of a commonality to them, and a lot of people dismiss them as sociopaths. Sociopaths are not exactly what these kind of people are. A sociopath is pretty understandable, actually. Yeah. They just simply don't have that empathy. They act as though they do, but they don't have it. But these people are not sociopaths because they could not take the time to cultivate these types of things, over this long period of time. They have to, if you think about it, there's a lot of sort of socialization that has to go into this. There's a lot of networking that has to go into this. You don't just wake up one day and decide that you're going to be a great scientist and get yourself into one of these positions. So this is not something that a sociopath does over a long period of time. I mean, although they are charismatic people on some levels, they're not social creatures that are going to go through all the steps necessary to get themselves in these kinds of positions. But there is something at their core that is, I don't know if it's self-hating or if it becomes like the sort of inverted God complex that happens with people.
Yeah, she said narcissistic, Jules, by the way. She said narcissistic personality disorder. They have no empathy. They have no remorse. They have no... It's like they, zero consequences for their actions. They just do what they want. It's the whole... what's the dude's name, Lance? Do what thou wilt. What was his name?
Aleister Crowley?
Aleister Crowley, yeah. Where'd you go, Lance? Wake up.
Oh, I'm here.
Okay, just checking.
There's an element of megalomania to it, though. There is a narcissistic personality that is obviously involved in that. And I guess when it gets so deep, again, it's hard for me to internalize this kind of thing because no matter how screwed up I've ever been in my lifetime, I could never sort of reach these depths personally. You know what I mean? And so it's hard for me to sort of relate it to where I'm at. But if you read up on it, she's right. Narcissistic personality disorders, borderline personalities, and then you take sort of a developed megalomania on some levels, and it becomes a guy like this. And it's hard to swallow because, like I said, we can sort of relate to somebody who's evil or combative on a street sort of level, on a person level.
Asshole, this Dr. whatever the hell his name was, Kosakawa or Kasaka, or whatever your name is, up there at the University of Wisconsin. I hope that you develop the worst case of OCD germophobia that I have ever seen in my life. I hope that you can't even walk into a lab anymore and work on your germs. What you're doing is a crime against humanity, and you should be stopped by someone.
Can't disagree with you there.
I would love to see him develop germophobia to where he has to wash his hands 25 or 30 times a day. You know what I mean? Those kind of people. Like
or
he wouldn't be able to get within 1,000 yards of that lab without freaking the F out, man.
Or even better, some sort of slow-moving disease that he can't quite wrap his mind around that happens to eat him alive for, a good year or so, but it's completely unstoppable.
But I don't know if he's ever turned any of this shit loose. I'm sure somebody probably has, but the whole thing when it went into him working on H5N1 and making it more transferable, and then you read about the 2009 outbreak. Whoa, gee, I wonder when he did his study. Was it 2008?
But I'm not even saying that he should die from it. What I'm saying is that he should have to face the idea that he would.
Yeah.
Not even saying that he couldn't pull it out and figure it out, or somebody else couldn't figure it out, or there isn't a cure for it, or whatever else. But I'd like for him to have to actually face that personally. Whether he dies from it or not is irrelevant. Because
see what he throws out to the world, taste of his own medicine.
Yeah, well, that's why I enjoy, like Dante's Inferno, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's, it gives you that sense of justice. But,
all right, let's move on.
Please.
So, Lance, your turn. Tag, your story. Next story.
A bill, this is just posted today on DC Clothesline, and it was on Mr. Conservative also. DC Clothesline airing out America's dirty laundry. Bill would allow police to confiscate guns on accusation alone. And there's a video attached to this, and it's this lady Skinner that's proposing this bill. A draconian gun control bill set to be voted on by the California legislature would allow police to confiscate a person's firearms solely on the basis of an accusation made against the gun owner by a family member or a health professional. Although the bill was amended after an onslaught of complaints, the legislation is still being labeled as the harshest in the country. AB 1014, authored by Assembly members Das Williams and Nancy Skinner, would create gun violence restraining orders that would allow police to proactively confiscate firearms and hold them for 1 year with no due process, merely based on an accusation made by an immediate family member, a law enforcement officer, or a health professional. This bill would allow a search warrant to be issued when the property or things to be seized are a firearm or firearms or ammunition that is in the custody or control of or is owned or possessed by a person who is subject to the gun violence restraining order and who is presently known to have in his or her custody and control or possession or to own a firearm or ammunition. The accusation against the individual has to meet the standard of evidence to believe that the subject of the petition poses a significant risk of personal injury to himself, herself, or another by having under his or her custody or control, owning, purchasing, possession, or receiving a firearm, although the nature of this evidence is not properly defined. The bill has drawn fiery criticism from gun right advocates who see the legislation as an erroneous onslaught of the Second Amendment.
No kidding.
If, for example, person A goes to a judge and files a complaint about person B can have his or her gun and gun rights taken away without any idea why, or even have the chance to plead their case. Only after law enforcement search person B, their family, friends, place of work, or anywhere else police might have thought person B hid guns, would that person have the right to defend themselves, guilty until proven innocent. This bill goes too far, Senator Dougherty of the California Association of Federal Firearms Licensees told the Senate panel. It shreds the right of privacy and the right of property that has been jurisprudence for decades. Even Dane Wardpayer of Taxpayers for Improving Public Safety, a group that normally supports gun control legislation, spoke out against the bill, stating that it had significant constitutional deficiencies and would not be enforceable. Having been passed by the California Senate Public Safety Committee, the bill now heads to the legislature for a full vote. Ain't that some shit?
That is some shit. I don't think it'll pass. It's just a bill right now that they're trying to put up. I don't know. We'll have to keep an eye on that for sure. Where'd you find that story again? Mr. Conservative?
Mr. Conservative and DC Clothesline, both of them had it. And there's a YouTube video of this lady Skinner talking at the thing, and actually the other guys that I said that are gun control, advocates,
right.
Both of them were speaking out against it, going, you can't do this.
Good. At least they're getting there.
I'll drop it in the chat if you want.
Cool. I heard you open the mic, Chuck. What do you got to add to that?
Well, I mean, to put it in context, there's been a lot of sort of add-ons for this stuff for a long time, like even in civil disputes where you have like temporary restraining orders and things like this, which haven't even been fully examined by a judge. They turn around and they tell you that you got to surrender your firearms and everything else. This kind of stuff has been going on for a while. It's sort of like the next logical step. I don't think they'll get it passed, obviously, but you got to be careful because a lot of things.
Man, California people, you never know.
Yeah, they've been going around confiscating guns for a while now, just from people that had their backgrounds, some kind of psychological shit in their background.
There's a lot of brainwashed people out there.
Yep.
There's the psychological aspect, but there's also, in a lot of states with child support, if you are behind and you're through the probation system in your state, now guess what? Because you owe money, they turn around and they ask you to surrender your gun licenses and things like that as well. I don't know if everybody's aware of that, but what I'm saying is a lot of places they've just sort of added these things into other existing systems. You know what I mean? So that incrementally we're looking at an increase in disqualifying people from owning guns. So it's just one of those things that everybody's got to keep a good watch on, and you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's just. That's where the problem is. I mean, like I told you before, I mean, I've been disqualified from getting a proper license because the FBI sends back a red flag on it.
Right.
And I'm assuming that that's happening more and more, especially with the proliferation of the DHS and everything else. I mean, it's one of those things to keep an eye on. That you may be more disqualified for things than the more that you let these people get involved in these things.
Yep. So. Hey, just something that I just caught in chat, and I just realized, I mean, I've been out working on my house for 2 days, so I hadn't really noticed, but Salt Lake City Mike, formerly of Salt Lake City, the Michael, formerly of Salt Lake City, people in chat are asking about you, brother. I don't know if you're listening or not, but they haven't seen you for a couple of days, and they want to make sure you're doing all right. So drop us a line if you could. Add into the call if you feel like it. Let us know what's been going on. How's the garden going? Blah, 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 blah. Anyway, we're thinking about you, brother, and would like to see your smiling face. Moving on.
Hi, Dougie. I'm still on the radio. I got a little more to go. Go lay down.
Okay. My turn, yes? Or do you got a story, Chuck, that you want to air out? Or, well, you've been kind of busy for the last couple of days, so...
Yeah, I was kind of just sleeping in a hospital with a bad Wi-Fi connection, so
right.
I didn't get much done outside of pushing out those pictures and things. I did happen to notice, though, that there was this discussion of this ISIS thing a little more, and now they're making all sorts of interesting declarations about who they are, who they're associated to, and everything else, trying to clearly define who their peeps actually are, huh?
Mm-hmm. They've started a new caliphate, and they have a caliph, and yippee for them, right? They've taken over some, part of Syria and part of Iraq. Their own little state, their own caliph.
And a caliph would be the introduction of somebody who hasn't been around since, the early 20th century, I think.
They're saying this al-Baghdadi dude is supposed to be him. Now, I saw a story the other day that said that al-Baghdadi was a made-up name, that it's not even a real person. It's just somebody that they started, just some name they started throwing out there so people would start, devoting their time and effort into the whole deal. Whatever, I don't know.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of that whole, we are, and I am, and I am, and I am, where they start stepping out of the crowd and they're all the same guy, right?
Well, I'm just wondering if somebody's got a playbook or something, because I think this whole caliphate thing is part of the end times, isn't it, Lance? Isn't there something to do with that in the Torah code and all kinds of other shit that's going on?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. When you're talking about Iraq, you got to be looking for Persia in the old text, I guess.
Because that is Persia, right?
Because that's Persia. So I believe there's something about that.
That's why we robbed the museum at Baghdad as soon as we took over.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I do have a story on Iraq. If
do you?
On that, yeah.
Yeah, throw it out there.
Great.
This was posted today on Bloomberg, actually. So halfway credible. But they always have an agenda whenever they print something. Printed today. The U.S. is ready to sell Iraq thousands of missiles, and a second batch of Russian Sukhoi combat jets arrived in Baghdad as foreign powers moved to help Iraqi forces battle an Al-Qaeda offshoot. Sure they are. Steps
Would that be ISIL?
Yeah. Steps to beef up the government's arsenal came as politicians deadlocked over who will lead Iraq as it risks hurtling into renewed civil war. Shiite Prime Minister Maliki is under pressure from domestic opponents to step aside to allow the formation of a broad-based government that would give greater say to the Sunni minority in an effort to undercut the Sunni insurgency.
He's an American puppet, right?
Exactly.
The one they stuck in there after they choked Saddam around the neck?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Okay.
The risk of sectarian civil war in Iraq, OPEC's second biggest oil producer, flared last month after the Sunni Al-Qaeda breakaway, also known as the Islamic State, seized Mosul. The U.S. State Department has told lawmakers informally that the Obama administration wants to sell Iraq more than 4,000 additional Hellfire missiles to support its fight against the Islamic insurgents, according to people with the plan. Sale of the laser-guided missiles made by Lockheed Martin would be in addition to the 500 previously purchased. Islamic State, which has attracted support from Sunnis alienated by the government's pro-Shiite policies, is also fighting the government in Syria. It recently declared an Islamic caliphate in areas in both countries under its control. Mm-hmm. An assertion of authority meant to consolidate its power and blur borders. Russia began sending used fighter jets and military advisors to Iraq over the weekend in response to an appeal from the government of Prime Minister Maliki. Today's arrival brings the number of planes shipped to 10, and that's from Russia. The jets will be flown by Iraqi pilots and are ready to provide air support to the armed forces. The lack of a serious aerial threat has allowed Sunni militias to use lightning raids and quickly assemble convoys of pickup trucks.
Sunni.
Right. And Iraq can use Russian jets to interdict mass Islamic State and Sunni rebel convoys.
Sunni.
Whatever.
Yeah, that's. That whole caliphate thing is that's part of the end times books.
Mm-hmm.
Now we gotta watch for Damascus to fall. If the city of Damascus falls, then yep, they're following the Torah.
Oh, I didn't. There's actually, I thought I was done because the rest was boring, but Iraq's Shiite-led government said it turned to Russia to bolster its aerial capabilities because U.S. F-16 jets were taking too long to be delivered. President Obama has also refrained from ordering airstrikes against the Sunni militias.
Sunni. Jesus, man.
Sunni onus on Iraq leaders to first form an inclusive government that could work to end the marginalization of minority Sunnis.
Yeah.
So that's very interesting.
What another bunch of bullshit.
The Sunnis and the Shiites have been at each other for, centuries. And, this is a constant thing. I mean, these guys will argue with each other, and that's not even getting into, like, the Wahhabi type, type Muslims, which is a whole other thing. I mean, this is like seizing upon the existing struggles that are continuous and so on and so on. I mean, I am a little bit worried, though, because, the whole following that playbook, depending on which version you read, you could be looking at the resurgence of stuff in Persia and all this other thing. And he's right. You just reminded me about that fall of Damascus deal. That is a key also. Mm-hmm. But look, who keeps getting brought up as far as, this may spread to, and this is connected to, guess what?
Al-CIA does.
What a shocker. But we want to make sure that you know that they're not part of that particular CIA-backed terrorist group, okay? They're actually their own CIA-backed terrorist group. So don't forget that. And we've even changed our name because now we're going to call ourselves the Islamic State instead of ISIS because, after all, ISIS seemed to be, a little too silly for a Muslim, terrorist group to call itself. So now we're just IS. Right. But, awesome.
The Islamic State.
Yeah.
Okay, and this story I got here, I'm going to read this one off. This kind of goes along with this whole threat to America, insurgent activity inside the U.S. borders, blah, 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 okay? Now, just take this with a grain of salt, this article that I'm getting ready to read, because it is from GOP Daily Dose. So it's got kind of a conservative slant to it, I'm sure, but this is a real story. This is not bullshit. This is on Fox News. It's on a couple other places. If RT would have had it, I'd have read theirs, but they don't have it out yet. So, illegal alien disease epidemic. Doctors and nurses are gagged, threatened with arrest if they talk. This is out of Texas. This is from the, I think it's an Air Force base down there, if I'm not mistaken, where they have all these illegal immigrants coming across the border. These children that have swine flu and some other people that have other more nasty things creeping around their bodies. Here we go. The message to doctors and nurses was simple. You talk, you go to jail. That message was delivered by officers of the government security contractors hired to police the Lackland Air Base illegal alien induction facility. Now look, when these people were asked who they were, they simply told these doctors and nurses they were brown shirts. Whatever the F that's supposed to mean.
Wouldn't that be a reference to the brown shirts in Germany?
Mm-hmm.
Would that be the idea there?
I don't know.
Oh, boy. Go ahead, sorry.
Some have spoken up anyway because the risks are so great. They say the American taxpayers and citizens have a right to know that what disease epidemic risk is being brought into our nation. They were interviewed confidentially by Todd Starnes of Fox News. The secret nature of the process is itself a concern to whistleblowers. One psychiatric counselor said there were several of us who wanted to talk about the camps, but the agents made it clear we would be arrested. We were under orders not to say anything. The security guarding the workers is provided by Baptist Family and Children's Services, a contractor hired by Health and Human Services. They are referred to by themselves and others within the facility ominously as brown shirts. They actually put that in this story. The counselor said it was a very submissive atmosphere. Once you stopped onto the grounds, you abided by their laws, the brown shirt laws. Upon entry to the facility, all cell phones and other communication devices are confiscated, and anyone caught with a phone is immediately terminated, she said. Everyone was paranoid. The children had more rights than the workers. The infectious diseases that are still being brought in include measles, scabies, chickenpox, and strep throat. Mental health and emotional conditions are also being diagnosed and may or may not be treated. The counselor described watching lice crawling down the hair of children she was attending to. A former nurse calls it a lice epidemic. She said you could see the bugs crawling through their hair, and added, after we would rinse out their hair, the sink would be loaded with black bugs. That former nurse said, we have so many kids coming in that there was no way to control all of the sicknesses. All this stuff is coming into the country. We were very concerned at one point about strep going around the whole base. The counselor and the nurses both said the official position is to conceal the extent of the illnesses from the public. The nurse describes how, when they found out about the kids had scabies, the charge nurse was adamant. Don't mention that. Don't say scabies. But everybody knew they had scabies. Some of the workers were very concerned about touching things and picking things up. They asked if they should be concerned, but they were told, don't worry about it. Another problematic condition which concerned the nurse was the fact that the children were transported to Lackland on domestic charter buses and airplanes. Whatever conditions they may have been left on the seats and other surfaces that could infect others. The counselor noted that the children who they recognized as being suicidal and recommended that they be sent to a psychiatric unit rather than treat one boy. She pointed out he was placed with a family in America. It was at that point that she filed a Child Protective Services report and quit her job, concerned that her license was at risk if the child later committed suicide. The counselor says she kept a detailed journal about what was going on inside the Lackland facility and remarked, when people read that journal, they are going to be astonished. I don't think they will believe what is going on in our country. She reports that she was later contacted by federal agents who demanded that she return to Lackland and surrender her journal to them. She refused to do so and has not returned to Lackland. This is Cloward Piven in action. The nurse has expressed her disbelief or her belief that they are going to crush the system. We cannot sustain this. They are overwhelming the system, and I think it's a travesty. Rick Wells is a conservative author. Okay, that goes into Rick Wells, the guy that wrote the story. So there you go, folks. That's happening in this country. These kids are coming over by the thousands. 30,000 at the last I heard, and that was, 2 weeks ago, Lance, when we read that one?
Exactly.
You know.
And I mean, these kids
I'm not too hip on what scabies is. Do you know what scabies is?
No, but those kids are coming from, Honduras, Bolivia, Nicaragua, so
San Salvador.
Their parents, like the article, said that their parents cared so much about them that they gave them to smugglers to travel all the way up to the United States to, get rid of the war and the violence and everything that they're growing up in.
Yeah. So send them here.
Well, them Christian values don't turn away the meat and everything.
Yeah.
Scabies, if I remember, is a highly infectious skin thing that a lot of homeless people get in this country, actually.
Yeah, blisters all over your arms and shit. Is that what? Yeah, that's scabies, right? You got these little welts, these little blood blisters and shit all over you.
It's like a welting rash kind of deal.
Yeah.
It's pretty nasty, actually.
Mm-hmm.
But I keep wondering why this is happening. Where is this coming from? What is the motivation for the sudden influx that's now supposedly, like you said in the story there, overwhelming the existing system? Why is this happening all at once?
It's almost like it's part of the playbook. I keep going back to that because I full on believe it. There is no the coincidence can't happen like this, right? I mean, it just doesn't. It just doesn't. The whole collapse of this country, with the shape we're in, we don't make a goddamn thing in this place no more. All we do is service a bunch of people that come over here for vacations and shit. You know what I mean? We can't make a computer worth of fuck. We can't do anything. We can't do. Our roads are falling apart. Bridges are falling into the goddamn rivers. It's just, it's a joke, man. This country's a fucking joke.
No, I hear that, but it seems to me as though there had to have been some sort of general announcement or something. because these kids are coming from more than one place. I mean, they're coming from one area for sure, but I mean, communication, there had to have been some sort of mass sort of communication here to all these people to sort of do it all at once.
Somebody put an ad in the paper down there?
I mean, that sounds silly, but I mean, in some way or other, that seems to be what happened, right? I mean, because it wouldn't just all of a sudden happen. It would be a steady stream over time. You'd see little bursts and little, like ebb and flow like anything else, right? But when you see a huge influx like this, I mean, I'm wondering why nobody seems to be asking, none of the people in the mainstream or anywhere else are looking to anybody on the ground to find out, like, why the hell this is all happening.
Because they can't
at once.
They can't say nothing about it. That's what the whole story what I just read was about. They've been told to hush up. This lady just now broke the silence.
But they're being told to hush up about the conditions of these kids and the possibility of whatever diseases. And guaranteed, most of what she's talking about there is actually kind of mild compared to what could be coming in. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? There could be all sorts of things. I mean, measles is sort of dangerous considering, but, the rest of this stuff is, like I said, the homeless population in a lot of cities are suffering from the same kind of problems, the lice, the scabies, the et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean,
this is only adding to the problem then. I mean, it's not, I don't know.
No, I'm not
trying to minimize. You passed me the story, Lance. What do you think?
I think the whole thing's messed up.
Well, thanks, Captain Obvious.
That's why I let you read it.
Yeah. Now, I want to get your opinion, though, man. Give me your opinion. You saw the pictures. I think I passed you the picture. I put it on Facebook or whatever. The kids riding on top of the train cars and shit. When you look down the picture, if you don't just look at the one single car that's center frame, they were all over that train. I'll bet there was 2,000 or 3,000 people on top of that train and hanging out the sides of the goddamn thing. It was just ridiculous, man. And it was coming right across the border. There's no checkpoints at the rails, right? So they just roll right through.
Well, I saw the story about the people that blocked the buses.
Yeah, I got that here, too. You want to read that one?
Yeah, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, tag, dude, tag. I read the last one.
I don't have the story.
Again, though, I'm very curious. Look, if anybody listening and wants to join in, I would love to hear if somebody's got any sort of an inkling about information as to how this is all a very sudden influx, though. I would love to hear that.
Absolutely. 718-717-8296 or UCY.TV. Add right into the call.
Creating Democrat voters.
Yeah, that's all they are is undocumented Democrats.
And I see the memes all the time. They talk about, as soon as they get here, they have access to free health care, everything else, and our veterans come back and got to wait. The guy that died 2 years.
2 years ago, they sent his wife his appointment card. Oh, your husband can finally get in. He's been dead for 2 years, you shitheads. So here's the story about the protesters. California protesters blocked transport of undocumented immigrants. And this was pretty cool, actually. There was some video and shit online about this, too.
There was.
Anti-immigration protesters impeded the arrival of several buses transporting undocumented immigrants into a U.S. Border Patrol station in Murrieta, California, on Tuesday, some 60 miles north of San Diego. The arrival along of the group of Central American families had been directed by Murrieta's mayor, Alan Long. Had been decried, who alleged that the group of immigrants, adults with their children numbering about 140, represented a public safety threat to the community. Assembled protesters who numbered 150 converged on the street leading up to the access road into the processing center, preventing 2 buses from reaching the facility, reported Reuters. Police at the scene did not attempt to break up the demonstration, which included picket signs with messages such as "Return to Sender" and "Bus illegal children to the White House." And anti-immigration slogans. Almost a half hour into the incident, the 2 unmarked buses turned around and left. A representative of the Border Patrol Agents Union said that the immigrants would likely be rerouted to one of the other 6 Border Patrol stations in the San Diego region. Local news reports seem to confirm that 140 undocumented immigrants were instead being driven to the Chula Vista Border Patrol facility in San Diego County. The Central American immigrants had been flown to San Diego from Texas and were on their way for processing at the Marietta facility, where U.S. immigration officials told Reuters they would be released under supervision and await deportation. Tuesday's incident in Marietta highlights the influx of both families and unattended minors from Central America, which have strained the Border Patrol's resources and led to the creation of several temporary processing facilities to deal with the overflow conditions in Texas. Oh, man, this just keeps going and going and going. Unlike undocumented immigrants from Mexico who are subject to immediate deportation, the latest influx of families and children fleeing violence and poverty in Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras are instead subject to processing by authorities. Unaccompanied minors are the responsibility of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, which is currently scrambling to create enough housing and provide basic care. Ready for this? Some 500,000 unattended children have crossed into the U.S. illegally within the past year alone. 500,000 undocumented children. The agency's program, Unaccompanied Alien Children, UAC, was only meant to serve the needs of some 8,000 children per year while being processed through U.S. immigration courts. Temporary facilities have been set up in Nogales, Arizona, to cope with the overflow from South Texas. Meanwhile, another group of immigrants has been driven to a similar facility in El Centro, California, some 100 miles east of San Diego. 500,000 children. That's not including all the other folks, because there was a lot of older folks on them trains. But 500,000 undocumented children just in the last year.
Right, so unless I misunderstand that, that's better than 1,000 a day. Am I right?
Yeah, a week, 52 weeks in a year. Oh, man. That's just unbelievable, man. That's just unbelievable. And talk about overwhelming the system. That nurse that released the journal, she was absolutely right. These people are overwhelming the system. They are going to crash the system. Is this Lance? Is this the shoe?
Don't know. We've always said holiday weekend.
Well, I'm sure that they can't. I mean, unless they come over by the millions in the next 48 hours, I don't think that was, you know what I mean? But, wow, man. Wow. I mean, is it going to be death by 1,000 cuts? We're not going to see another shoe drop. We're just going to get smacked around a little bit, catch a couple lefts, catch a couple rights, don't know where it's coming from.
Man, I wish I had my crystal ball.
I wish you did too, man. Go get that thing out of Hawk.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
We're in interesting times, that's for sure.
Yeah, we are.
Unprecedented. Historical. They'll write in the history books about this.
Yep.
Of course, they'll skewer it to whoever's writing it will skewer it to make themselves look good.
If it's a Democrat or Republican.
Democrat.
The winners write the history, so.
Yeah, that's right, because they can afford the ink and paper.
You got it.
So, did you guys check out the whole thing on Facebook about the DOD experiment that they were trying to
I read
think certain things and feel certain emotions and
now it's tied to a Pentagon study that they were doing too.
Yeah, I'm getting ready to jump into that story. But what do you guys think about that first thing? About Facebook even trying this? I guess it was only like on 100,000 people or something. 100,000 selected people.
It didn't bother me.
Were you part of it?
I didn't even bother to read the whole story.
Oh. Go ahead, Chuck.
Yeah, I saw that thing go right by me, and I'll tell you what, I looked at it and kind of went, well, no shit, really.
Yeah, no shit. What do you expect?
I kind of said to myself, well, look, if you think about Facebook and all these other sort of social media things, how else could you develop a better sort of system for gathering, for farming the information together?
They know what everybody looks like.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's just like perfect, and everybody's doing it voluntarily, so
Right. Well, here's the story they got on it. tying it into the whole DOD thing. Facebook's experiment on over 500,000. Oh, it's 500,000. Unsuspecting users. Hey, I wonder if they're all illegals. Sorry, that was a bad joke. Has taken a new twist with the revelation that the researcher connected to the Department of Defense funded program to use the military to quell civil unrest also participated in the study. The social media site exploded over the weekend after it was revealed that Facebook, no stranger to controversy of late, secretly manipulated posts being seen by nearly 700,000 users in 2012 in order to allow researchers to study how emotional states are transmitted over the platform. Results of the week-long study conducted by researchers at Facebook, Cornell University, and the University of California appeared in the June edition of Journal of Proceedings. The June edition of the Journal Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. Oh, the PNAS, okay. Under a rather insidious title, Experimental Evidence of Massive Scale Emotional Contagion Through Social Networks. That was the name of the study. Social contagion. We're all contagious now. Facebook altered the content that showed up on certain users' news feeds to control the number of posts that contain words with positively or negatively charged emotions. The team concluded its federally funded study by saying that emotions spread via contagion through the network. When word hit the internet that Facebook was essentially conducting Orwellian thought policing, an electronic outpouring of condemnation greeted the company which Mark Zuckerberg built. He did not. He was funded to do that by the CIA. Let's see. One of the study's authors, Adam Kramer, took to his own Facebook account to offer more of an explanation than an apology for the secret study. Here's a quote from Mr. Kramer. We felt that it was important to investigate the common worry that seeing friends post positive content leads to people feeling negative or left out. At the same time, we were concerned that exposure to friends' negativity might lead people to avoid visiting Facebook. We didn't clearly state our motives to the paper. The attack on Facebook took looks set to worsen as it was discovered that one of the authors of the platform's mind study, Jeffrey Hancock of Cornell University, also received funding from the Pentagon's so-called Minerva Research Initiative to conduct a similar study entitled Modeling Discourse and Social Dynamics in Authoritarian Regimes. The Pentagon-funded Minerva program provides cash awards to everyone from single investigators to multi-university consortia, according to its website, and includes researchers from 32 academic institutions, including 6 non-U.S. universities and 4 industry or non-profit organizations. The program will disperse around $6 million in 2014 and $17 million over the next 3 years. Hancock's description page at Cornell University cites psychological and interpersonal dynamics of social media, deception, and language as his research and academic interests. Hancock's study appeared in 2009, 1 year before the U.S. Army War College Strategic Institute warned in a different study, and in the wake of the global financial meltdown, that the United States could experience massive civil unrest from a series of crises it termed strategic shock. What? Let me read that paragraph again for you folks, just so you understand what I'm talking about. Hancock's study appeared in 2009, 1 year before the U.S. Army's War College Strategic Institute warned in a different study that in the wake of the global financial meltdown that happened in 2008, that the United States could experience massive civil unrest from a series of crises it termed strategic shock.
And that's why they weren't ready for it in 2008, and they had to bail everybody out.
Yeah.
I'll tell you something else. If somebody quickly Googles, because Minerva, that's spelled the same way as the goddess's name, or what?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Probably.
Well, I bet you if you Google that real quick, it would make a whole lot more sense, too.
Mm-hmm. The report, which carried the Rumsfeldian title, Known Unknowns, Unconventional Strategic Shocks in Defense Strategy Development, suggested that the military may have to be called in to restore domestic order in the event of a massive social breakdown. Quoting, widespread civil violence inside the United States would force the defense establishment to reorient priorities in extremes to defend basic domestic order and human security. The report, authored by retired Lieutenant Colonel Nathan Freer. Meanwhile, Cornell University participated in another study under the Minerva Research Initiative and supervised by the U.S. Air Force's Office of Strategic Research that looks to predict the dynamics of social movement, mobilization, and contagions. The project hopes to foresee the critical mass tipping point of social unrest and upheaval by studying their digital traces from a number of recent events, including the 2011 Egyptian Revolution and the 2013 Gezi Park protests in Turkey. Gee.
Yeah, that brought out a lot of people.
I wonder if those were staged events.
Well, that's why they didn't show it on American media hardly ever, because they didn't want people getting the wrong idea that, hey, you what do you mean? You can stand up to your oppressive government? I didn't know that. Let me get back to my Big Mac. Excuse me.
At the same time, Twitter feeds and conversations will be examined to identify individuals mobilized in social contagion and when they become mobilized. Facebook apologizes after psychological experiments caused outrage. Coming so soon after the Snowden leaks, the idea of a researcher closely affiliated with the Pentagon study, now secretly examining the behavior of Facebook users under controlled conditions, is certainly cause for alarm, you think. The latest scandal also speaks volumes about the disturbing frequency of U.S. educational facilities cooperating so directly with military programs that do not appear to have the best interests of the civil society at the core of their fucking actions. I'm sorry I added the fucking in there.
Oh,
they don't. They don't have our best interests at heart. They want to drone bomb us all.
But see, and that's where I think the ones doing it are going to come to the realization of, wait a minute, what the hell are we doing? That's what my hope is.
You keep praying for that.
Minutemen Patriots or whatever they're called.
Right.
Oath keepers, whatever.
I don't think they even realize what their oath is. I don't think they know those 75 words.
No, but a lot of them have morality. You got to believe that. They're not all broken souls.
Well, not all of them, no. They're not all broken souls, but I think most of them have been vaccinated against the thinking. I don't know. Chime in there, Chuck.
Well, the other problem is that, no matter how much good intention a lot of these guys have that are supposedly involved in all these things, here's the problem. Once they are convinced or sort of misled to understand who their enemies actually are, all that becomes irrelevant. If they think that people that are speaking out against the government are really the biggest enemy out there because they're the ones causing all of this and that and the third thing, then it becomes a whole lot more acceptable to eliminate some of those domestic enemies, doesn't it? This is what the trouble is. In a lot of cases, yeah, you could say that some of these guys could start to think for themselves and see that, hey, all this stuff is being turned on anyone who disagrees, and maybe that's really the program. But, but how long do you think that'll take, and how many of these guys do you think are actually going to start to dissect it and figure it out? Lance, I would love to believe what you're saying, but I think there's too many of them that are just going to accept the target being painted on the wrong people's backs. And
because it's not happening in their front yard.
Well, right. And again, because they're being programmed to believe that the wrong people are their enemies.
Right. Our humans are better than your humans.
Yep.
Because we wave this flag. And we live on this piece of dirt. Okay. Final story for the night. And then we'll chew the fat for the last 10 minutes. I'll try to get through this as quickly as possible because it talks about a piece of vomitous trash. Worst president since World War II, new poll says it's Obama. Poor polling results keep rolling in for President Barack Obama with new surveys showing that the plurality of American voters think he is the worst chief executive in the modern era. According to a new Quinnipiac University poll conducted between June 24 and June 30, roughly 33% of Americans believe Obama is the worst president since World War II. These numbers are even worse with his predecessor, George W. Bush, who 28% of the voters pegged as the worst. Compared head-to-head, neither of the two most recent presidents received high marks. In results that split largely across party lines, 39% of voters said Obama had been a better chief executive than Bush, while 40% said he was worse. Men favored Bush by 7 points, while women went with Obama by 4%. Over the span of 69 years of American history and 12 presidencies, Barack Obama finds himself with President George W. Bush at the bottom of the popularity barrel. Wouldn't it have been a better fit? More voters in hindsight say yes. You're stupid people, too. As for who Americans actually believe is the best president, 35% of voters said Ronald Reagan topped the list. Bill Clinton and John F. Kennedy fell into second and third place, respectively, with 18% and 15%. God, there are some dumb people out there, man. Interestingly, despite Obama's poor showing at the worst president since World War II, 8% of voters also called him the best. They must be his relatives. A result good enough for fourth place on the best presidents list. In addition to asking voters to compare Obama to his predecessors, Quinnipiac also took the temperature on their approval of the job he's doing. Although the president's rating went up 2 points to 40%, his performance in specific areas was largely underwater. 53% disapprove of his performance overall, while 54% believe his administration is not competent when it comes to running the government. On the economy, only 40% approved of his handling, while 37% approved of his approach to foreign policy. The only category in which Obama's approval hit 50% was on environmental policy. Are you fucking serious? How many oil leaks have happened since this jackass took office, huh? How many pipelines burst open? How many people were run out of their goddamn houses from the shit spilling all that? Give me a fucking break. Are you really people? America, you embarrass the shit out of me. The numbers arrived just a couple of weeks after a new NBC Wall Street Journal poll also delivered bad news for the president. Only 41% approved of Obama's job performance, a slide of 3 points since April, and 54% of the respondents believe he is unable to lead the country and get the job done. A new Gallup poll, meanwhile, found that among all living U.S. presidents, Obama's favorability has dipped below that of George W. Bush and Jimmy fucking Carter. End of story.
In a related survey, 100 people, 100% of the people surveyed, unless they said, no, it's a puppet government that doesn't really have any control over anything, so they're just the face that we're seeing. The shadow government is really running everything, and they're doing what they're told. So, let's, he isn't the worst president ever. He's just, bad timing.
He's the worst one to be elected this term.
Yeah, he's the front man for the fall of everything of what's being controlled that he's not controlling.
Right. Go ahead, Chuck.
Oh, yeah. That's about where I was going. Is he's the worst puppet that happens to be on stage at the wrong time. So, this is where we're at. I find that amazing, though, that he's worse than Carter. You guys, whoa. Does anybody even recall exactly how unpopular Carter was at the end of his single term?
I remember.
Well, most people that voted probably didn't know Carter. They only know him by peanuts.
Right. And Habitat for Humanity.
And his humanitarian efforts that he does now, because he is the best ex-president we've ever had.
True. Oh, he's the one that speaks the truth. He comes out there and tells it like it is, even though he's still a dumb shit.
Maybe that's why he is speaking the truth. He doesn't know any better. Because he was the one who came out not too long ago talking about how they had armed, various militants who turned back around on us and everything else. And I don't think I've ever heard an ex-president say something like that before.
Spilled beans. Yeah.
Yeah. So I got to give him that. But, at the time he left office, people were completely, thoroughly disgusted with him, I remember. very well. And
he's lucky when he was saying that one of those Secret Service agents didn't jerk the neckerchief off of him and stuff it in his mouth. I mean,
exactly.
Really, Jesus.
That was, but you know what? Again, you got to give it to him for at least laying it out there.
Right.
I mean, you're never going to hear somebody like Bill Clinton do that, right?
Oh, hell no. His wife's getting ready to be president, man. But I heard that Jeb's running right up neck and neck with her now.
But remember, I told you guys this like months ago when people were talking about. I said, I think we're going to look at a Bush and a Clinton campaign again.
Nope, King Obama. I'm sticking with it.
You're all right.
Happen, huh? You think something's going to happen, Lance, between now and then that's going to leave him in charge for the rest of eternity?
Man, 2 years is a lot of time left to commit, martial law.
You're right about that.
There's a lot that can go wrong in between now and then. King Obama, I'm sticking with it.
You think if that happens, he'll catch a bullet and they'll put Biden in since he's easier to control?
Obama doesn't seem that hard to control.
The guy's flying all over the goddamn world spending money like willy-nilly, man.
Well, I mean, he's just doing what he's told. He's not doing anything he hadn't been authorized.
I think he's played more rounds of golf than he's attended meetings at this point. I think that's an actual fact. I'm not sure, so I'm not going to quote it. But
yeah, I don't get into all that stuff. I mean, Bush played plenty of golf. I mean, all of them play golf that played golf. So,
And I don't believe for one moment that they would even allow Biden to take that spot.
No way.
No. I think even if Obama, choked on a pretzel or something, Biden would resign real quick right after, because that would be it. I don't think they would ever allow him to take that hot spot. I mean, I'm watching the guy's body language, even when he's sitting there listening to Obama and everything else. Have you ever noticed that he's always making like faces behind him?
Yep.
I've never seen anybody really comment on that, but it actually cracks me up, makes it really entertaining when I'm sitting there listening to the guy lie to me. I find it really funny that there's a guy behind him just making inappropriate, like, sort of gestures with his face the whole time.
Yeah.
It's hysterical. But, no, they would never let him front the situation. But I do think we're looking at Clinton and Bush. And I'll be willing to bet that Obama does not continue on. Although I've seen that postulated elsewhere.
I still want to know why Hillary's not in prison. I really do. I want to know why she's not in prison.
She's the 1%.
Well, successful politicians don't go to prison.
She lied before Congress, man. And she's not the only one either. There's been several folks that have lied before Congress over the last few years. Uh-oh, hang on. Finish the show out, man. I think something's getting into my chicken coop.
If you hear a shot, let's listen for the shot in the back, because I think it's a fox. Something's getting into his chickens right now.
Wow, I wonder, did he say that he lost one of the chickens recently?
Yeah, he lost, I think Henrietta, is the one he lost, and it had to have jumped a tree to get into the pen, because he said there was no hole underneath, and that's... Oh, did you hear a chicken?
Oh,
I hear the chicken.
Something.
I hear the chicken.
Yep.
I didn't hear a shot, though.
Nope, I'm definitely not hearing a shot. Oh, what do we got on the clock? Only about
a minute and a half, so we don't have much time to kill.
Might be long enough for us to hear that shot. Oh, did you catch that noise?
That did sound like a shot, didn't it?
It did sound like a shot to me.
It did. It sounded like
I hope he got him. If Jimmy runs back in and tells us that he just popped a fox in the head, I'm gonna crack up.
Yeah, he probably won't be back on for a show, but that's pretty good. Yeah, live chicken caper.
I think Jimmy just defended one of his girls there with with a live round.
I can't stop laughing. Live radio, his chicken coop gets raided. That's pretty darn funny. And I heard the racket. I heard the racket right before he said, "Finish the show. I think my chicken coop's getting raided."
Yeah, I wasn't sure what it was though. I was like, "Wait, is that the critter?" And I'm still hearing the crickets too.
Yeah. And I thought it was. I thought it was the chickens. I was like, "What?"
Oh well. Well, look. That's it. That's it. Peace and love, everybody.
He needs to come back in and pass it over, I think. But
he's gonna have to pass the phones.
We'll see what happens. Yep. All right. Peace and love.
Oh, the moon.